I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
Who's going to break Haystack's world title?
Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! He's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Mexico City to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the 10th and final round of the 2025 Formula SimRacing Pro Championship, proudly brought to you by our partners at GridFinder. My name is Edward Hunter. Alongside me is Mr. Ryan Ferris and our wonderful broadcast director and World Championship race winner. Congratulations to Mr. Patrik Hanko for his victory last time out at Suzuka. But what happened in the pro race last time out? Well, it was 2 wins in a row for Cedric Bill, but a big swing in the championship as we saw Ruben van der Houten just hold off Istvan Singel for third. But that third place has put Singel in a very strong position as his only title rival remaining was Giuseppe Cantoneri, who unfortunately got involved in an accident, lost his front wing, ended up finishing P13, and that has put him a full 24 points down with 25 points remaining. So Cantoneri does need quite the turnaround today in order to overcome that gap in the championship. Singel has actually already announced that I think he said this would be his final race in FSR, that he might not necessarily be coming back next season. So it will be a big, whatever the outcome of this championship, would be a big shame to lose this Van Singel, who's had a really, really strong career in the junior categories. So there you go. You can see the points there. Bill up to third, Van der Houten in fourth, Massa fifth, Akai in sixth, Amin Sweezy, who made his World Championship debut last time as well, he is in seventh. Persis Miramate, Costas Galamard is ninth, and Mattia Feligni rounding out our top 10 in the pro standings with one final round left to go. Let's bring in Mr. Ryan Ferris, who's been with us for a big chunk of this season. Then Ryan, here we are, the finale. It's very, very rare that an FSR season goes all the way into the middle of December, so Merry Christmas to all of you watching at home. But nonetheless, we can't unwrap our presents just yet, Ryan, because quite a lot of action, high-speed action in some instances, to come in Mexico City. And for Singel, it's a case of he just needs to get over the line, and I think 14th place should be enough to seal it. So this could be a very tense championship finale, but for Cantoneri, he needs a miracle.
Yeah,
Christmas miracle.
Yeah, well, it's the time of year for it. So Single obviously just needs to essentially just drive round and pick up a couple of points to secure the championship. But sometimes when it comes to a championship decider, it's not that easy. Obviously, turn one, as we've seen in real life and in sim racing, first lap can cause carnage. So anything can happen, and it usually does, as the great Murray Walker used to say.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, but and neither was Murray for that matter. But yeah, certainly after all the twists and turns we've seen this season, Bill winning the last 2 in a row, I'm sure Cedric Bill would love to win 3 in a row. It was like he took his first pro win and now he cannot stop winning. But yeah, a new circuit for everyone, Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, in that it's, I think, not been on the calendar for at least, I don't think it ever has been on the calendar from not in pro. It might have done 1 or 2 World Championship races like 10 years ago or something like that. But yeah, it's certainly a venue that they might have more experience from, say, the Codemasters F1 games, dare I speak of them here, or any other racing sim, but not necessarily in these particular cars on rFactor 2 in this particular championship. So it is a real step into the unknown, which is one of the reasons why I picked it. It also creates a few headaches for the organisers, so apologies to Race Direction for all the problems that the new circuit has caused. But there you go, you can see Istvan Singel, who I think has taken 8 out of 9 poles so far this season. Only Jorg Winter has beaten him in the opening qualifying session of the season in Bahrain. Apart from that, he has been pretty peerless. So Istvan, the Hungarian, leading the championship by 24 points, looking to seal it today, and starting from pole position would be... It would almost be more surprising if he didn't get pole position, and such as his incredible pace that he's shown at all sorts of circuits in qualifying this season.
Yeah, he was top of the timing sheets in the pre-quali warm-up session as I was looking at the live timing. So unless anyone can pull something out the bag, it looks fairly odds-on for a single pole again.
Yeah, just coming through the Ferris Stadium now and into the final corner, I believe. Obviously, the classic layout, this used to be called the Peraltada, the very, very long banked final corner. It's a bit less banked now because they use a slightly different version of it. I believe it's the Nigel Mansell corner, named after good old Il Leon, the Italians called him, as he drove a Ferrari at the time. But Nige, because he's more commonly known in the UK, made that move. I think it was a Gerhard Berger in 1990 where he swept around the outside of him. He's going to go through the first chicane. And Single gives the curbs a fairly wide berth there, which is interesting, as now he goes into turn 4 and 5. This is a tricky section, and this is where we saw there are a few liberties taken with track limits. Single stays on the circuit, off the curbs into the sort of double apex hairpin then, and then down towards the S section. This is a really wonderful part of the track, Ryan, especially in qualifying on the soft tyres, where it really tests the commitment of these drivers. You can feel the back end threatening to get away, but Single just arrests the slide there and gets through the S section in a pretty decent time as well, although you can see Nando Marsa, Sweezy on a very good lap too, but Single purple in that middle sector.
Yeah, it's going to be provisional pole, I think, for Single, but it definitely looks as though there's people behind going a little bit quicker through certain sectors. It just all depends, say for Sweezy, if he takes the life out of the tyres a bit too early in the opening stage of his lap.
There we go then. So towards the line comes Canzonieri. Where is this going to put Giuseppe Canzonieri? He remains, I think, in... immediately beaten, by the way. He was in 5th, now down to 6th as Ruben van den Hudding has gone up to 3rd. So Van den Hudding, definitely one of the other stars of the season with his pair of victories in Austria and at Singapore, of course. But certainly there's a sense that having to miss a couple of races really hurt his campaign. But he's been a brilliant teammate to Canzonieri, and we shouldn't forget as well the Teams Championship, the standings there. 3 points separate Optimal from Vale eSports here, so that is very much all to play for. So even if Single may be uncomfortable in the Drivers' Championship, there is still a major threat in the form of those two Valets that always seem to find a way to the front. There is Perseus Miram, the Canadian, who's had a pretty strong end to the season, picking up very consistent points finishes. Sparks flying out the back of that Go team then. The Go team have had such a strong season, the World Championship, right towards the wall as he goes into the entrance of the Ferris Stadium. And there's David Akhayan. Him and Galamadis got a crucial role to play here as Akhayan goes 3rd fastest, even though the final sector was not quicker as Miram nearly clatters into the wall and the rears have absolutely let go on him there.
Yep. Quick dash into pit lane, quite luckily for him. He hasn't got to... pull to one side, but
be careful there because we saw it in the World Championship races. Suzuki Yase Lattinen absolutely clobbered the pit entry by having a moment a bit very similar to that. While he couldn't decide whether he wanted to pit or not, and the tyres decided for him.
Yeah, and this is the sort of main part of the lap. Obviously, we see some people putting in purple sectors in the first sector, and then it all kind of goes away from them at the latter part of the lap, and in reality you need to keep your tyres in check for the final sectors, which takes the most life and puts the most heat into the tyres. So generally you ideally want to see a green sector potentially in the first sector, and you don't really want to see purple in the first sector.
Yeah, that's a bit counterintuitive to how it normally works, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just want to be purple everywhere, as it were, fastest of anybody. I'm pretty sure Istvan Single is going to ideally want to be purple without actually going like way too much to the point that he's just putting, as you say, so much engine heat through the tyres at the start of the lap. As we see Nando Marsa then, 2nd fastest at the moment. It's an all-Hungarian front row, and Marsa and Single have certainly both had... they've come a little closer, I think it was Singapore where they got a little close for comfort. Cedric Bill goes 2nd fastest, just over 2 tenths behind Istvan Single with 4 minutes left on the clock. Can Galamadis spoil the party? Did a brilliant final sector, but not enough in the first 2 to overcome Marsa then. So it is Optimal, Go team, Optimal, then our Valets in 6th and 8th at the moment, although Van den Hudding has just gone 5th fastest. What can Canzonieri do? 7th fastest. There we go. So he stays roughly where he was. So De Valle's losing a bit of time in qualifying as Akayan. Brakes and the rear tyres just absolutely slide out in the minute he hits the brake pedal there into turn 4.
Yeah, possibly a little bit too much bias towards the rear end, a little bit of locking there, but I did see from, the warm-up, pre-quali, Canzonieri did seem to be struggling for pace. He was midfield like he is now, so I feel like this might be a bit of a bogey track for Canzonieri, which is what you don't want for someone trying to fight for the championship in this last race.
Well, I think also maybe after what happened at Suzuka, it's certainly he kind of knows mentally that it's going to be quite a long shot for the championship. So maybe that is certainly not cost him any speed, but it does sort of affect the morale a little bit when you know that you need an absolute miracle to win the championship. Certainly, Single has got him exactly where he wants him, and again, a little bit deep actually into turn 4, but again, Single sets a personal best through that first sector, so certainly his run out of the first chicane was pretty strong, although he seems to have slowed right down there. So yeah, I think he knows slightly too late on the brakes into turn 4 there has cost that lap. Not much time left on the board then, but I think for Istvan Single, he knows the likes of Bill, Marsa, Ganlamadis will have to go some to get within a tenth or so of his time. It has been done before. The likes of Van den Hudding and Canzonieri have narrowly missed out on a couple of occasions. Most notably, Austria comes to mind, as now we see Van Leeuwen, who is back in the car. I think Van Leeuwen had to miss a couple of races, did Sander. So it's good to see him back in the saddle, as it were, and in 4th position as well, ahead of Ganlar. So 3 Optiminals in 4th, 5th and 6th. It does feel like Single has got all of his teammates playing rear gunner and keeping the Valets behind. That should be more than enough to comfortably overcome that 3-point gap there. So Valet might be thinking about the race now and having to change their strategy unless Van den Hudding or Canzonieri can nail. And Canzonieri's in the pits with less than 2 minutes to go, so he is leaving it late for another lap there. Van den Hudding not improving either, but Bill is faster in the middle sector. Let's see what this lap can do for him.
Yeah, fast through the middle sector. Oh, he's pulled out of that one.
Not a great final sector, I don't think.
So
here's Van den Hudding. So again, 27.2. So about a tenth of what Bill and Single were doing, very wide into the middle of that looked like it was a turn 13, wasn't it, after the S section?
yeah, it's all gone very sloppy for Van den Hudding in this final sector. Lost quite a bit of time there.
Yeah, unfortunate for the Dutchman then, but still quite a way to go in this 58 seconds, I should say, left to go. Ganlamadis and Akayan both starting another lap, and Akayan 27.2. So again, sort of there or thereabouts. Boratovsky sets the fastest first sector in the MV Conquest car, and we saw Boratovsky had a great start to the race, so he stayed out of trouble and was fighting sort of a top 5, top 6 at Suzuka before, unfortunately, he hit a couple of issues and dropped slightly further back. But yeah, Boratovsky has had his moments here and there. Or Andy Smokey, I think, is his username, and there's a nickname that he likes to be called. Akayan, purple in the middle sector there. He was showing a lot of confidence through the S's there, so he just needs to nail this final corner then, and we'll see if Akayan can get anywhere near the front row. The rear tyres complaining, begging for more traction already. Towards the line he comes, and it's Brutal pole position. 68 thousandths ahead as Van den Hudding loses it. That's his final lap over. Van den Hudding will start no better than 7th on the grid, but Singal is going to try and retake that pole. What a turn up Akayan, the rookie, has done here, Ryan.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. There was a few people who had been threatening to set the fastest lap, but it all kind of fell away from them at the end of the lap. But Akayan basically doing exactly what I said, taking it easy through that first sector, went purple in middle, and then did a personal best final. That's exactly what you want to do.
Across the line comes Singal. Can he take it back? No, he cannot. As into the wall goes Canzonieri. So something's gone very, very wrong and sideways on that lap. Cedric Bill is still out there a little bit wide. Not a great first sector either. So maybe he was also taking it easy. Let's see what this looks like. tiny spark through the S's there, but it's looking very, very controlled. Much bigger one there as he goes through 11 and 10, but I think Bill has abandoned that lap potentially, so we switch to... Oh no, he's gone faster in the middle sector. Marsa, personal best in the first, but it's going to be quite a final sector here for him to get anywhere close. Van Leeuwen finishes the session. Marsa to the line and goes third, just ahead of Bill, who has had to back out of that lap then. So, best qualifying of the season for both Akhayan and Marsa. But David Akhayan, in his rookie season, he has ended it on an absolute high, doing what not many people have done this season and beating Istvan Singal to pole position. Fabulous lap from the German.
Yeah, didn't see it coming, but obviously great job there. Very, very small margins between the pair of them though. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Massa and Bill would do. Bill was obviously a bit hungry. Is he going to go for 3 on the bounce? Go for a hat-trick of wins? I'm pretty sure he might try and put a spanner in the works for the Optimals.
So let's see how that qualifying session ended with Akhayan on pole position, Istvan Singal alongside him on the front row, his teammate of course, Nando Marsa and Cedric Bill making an all-go team in row 2. Then it is another optimal row of Van Leeuwen and Galvano Martis in 5th and 6th. Then it's our valets, Ruben van der Hudding and Giuseppe Canzonieri, 7th and 8th, with Canzonieri needing to keep his hopes alive. Percy Miram qualifies 9th and Zabrielekis rounds out the top 10. Mattia Feligni gets the Driving Revolution sim racing car into 11th. Amin Suizi gets the cell spot in 12th, but he has got a 4-place grid penalty coming his way. Unfortunately for him, that he has to serve from Circuit of the Americas, since he of course missed the pro race in Japan. Andrzej Borotowski was 13th on the grid, but he'll of course move up a position, as will David O'Reilly in 14th, and Juri Katochville, along with Felipe Salvino in the second cell spot. Well, I believe this is one of Salvino's first appearances of the season. I don't think we've seen Felipe on track before, so good to see him. Even if he was 5.5 seconds off of pole position, I think he should find a little bit more time come the race. Not saying a lap were Terry Crawford and Mihailo Vincentievich, who I think Vincentievich definitely had a bit of trouble getting in the service, so hopefully his car should last the distance, as indeed let's hope Terry Crawford can get to the end, because it's been a while since we've seen Terry on track as well, for that matter. But anyway, so Akhayan almost stealing the thunder of our I was going to say wannabe pro champion, but he is a man in a very, very strong position to seal the pro championship today, as long as he keeps it clean. And for David Akhayan, obviously there's the team's championship to think about. You said at the very start, Singal will just take it easy here, but this is Istvan Singal we're talking about. It's been a long while since his last win, which I believe was Spa, round 6, all the way back in end of September. It's been 3 rounds since then, where Singal has finished 5th, 4th and 3rd. Obviously an upward trajectory, but still not the first and seconds that he had exclusively had in the first 6 rounds up to that point then. So I think Istvan Singal will want to seal this in style with the best possible position, preferably first place. But Akhayan, it'll be that sense that his fight is not really with David Akhayan. Akhayan, of course, 6th in the championship, fighting with Nando Marsa, who's 3rd on the grid. He had his best qualifying as well. So I think Akhayan's got a couple of reasons to stay ahead and not play ball to help Singal in the Drivers' Championship, because this is sort of not a factor at the moment.
No, and I think the team will probably allow Akhayan to go for it, but seeing as, like you said, Singal just needs to score a couple of points and that's it. But whether or not Akhayan's able to do that, as we've kind of seen from Akhayan, that his tyre management at times hasn't been up to scratch compared to the regulars here. Whether or not he's managed to sort that out and go on for a good stint, we're going to soon find out.
Yep. Last couple of results for Akhayan. He's been in the points every race but one that he's done this season. Sole retirement at Silverstone. Other than that, he's always finished in the top 9. Best result in the last 2 races. He was 6th in Circuit of the Americas, 4th in Japan, of course. So he had a very, very clean run there. So certainly Akhayan has been on a real upward trend lately. And this is absolutely fabulous to see him Certainly put an aggressive qualifying setup, but as you say, how much wear is that going to put through the tyres then? As I believe the grid is forming at the moment, and we can get the formation lap very soon underway for our 18-car field. So certainly good to see the pro field ending on a real high here, with a lot of drivers really starting to get to grips with this championship, and they're putting in solid performances. And yeah, certainly we're really looking forward to all the good things we've got up in store for 2026, including a special winter series that we're in the middle of playing. So more on that at the end of the World Championship broadcast. But here we go. Akine just sets off and leads away on the formation lap. Then big moment here for the German. Can he convert this pole position to victory? What strategy will Optimal Go Team and Valet choose between them at the front of this field? But there is a reminder of our grid. Akine and Single form the front row, with Marsa and Bill lining up right behind them on row 2. Bill going for the hat-trick today in terms of 3 wins in a row. Sander van Leeuwen, Costas Galamatis, 5th and 6th, going in their season, hopefully, on a high. Van den Hudding, Canzaneri, both up against it, trying to defend their lead in the team's championship. Persis Miriam and Sabrelekis round out the top 10. Then on row 6, it's Mattia Feligni, joined by Andrei Borotovsky. Behind them, we have got race director extraordinaire David O'Reilly, the Australian, just ahead of Drew Katochville, our race steward. Then is Felipe Salvino and Amin Sweezian, all cell spot, row 7. Then on, that was row 8, sorry. Row 9 is Terry Crawford and Mihailo Vincentievich rounding up the field. Neither of them setting a time in qualifying, so this could be their first laps on the board. Let's hope that we get as many finishes as possible here, because especially through the S's here, if there's an accident, it tends not to be particularly small.
Yeah, and I noticed Botowski and O'Reilly failed to make it to the grid. And I think it's showing as pit for 12th and 13th at the moment. Hopefully they can sort something
let's hope
out.
there wasn't an accident that we didn't see in the background on the formation lap there. The other thing that could happen was they've decided to go to the pits deliberately to avoid carnage in front of them, or which Borotowski was Borotowski was going to be, you're right, they were both middle of the grid there, so they've cost themselves about 5 positions.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there definitely looked like there was 2 empty grid spots as they went off on the formation lap.
Anyway then, not empty for much longer will be that front row. Big moment for both Akine and Singel here. And the last thing that Istvan Single needs is to tangle with his teammate here, because that could cost him not just in the Drivers' Championship, but the teams as well. So this is going to be very interesting. A lot of slipstream, a long run into that first corner. Who's going to be using most of their push to pass in the opening meters of the race to gain an advantage here? Big gap between Feligni and Kratochville in the middle of the grid there, as our 2 cars desperately trying to get started from the end of the pit lane then. But the lights about to go on in Mexico for the final time in the Pro Championship this season. And is it going to be Akine winning the race? Can Single win the Drivers' Championship? Will Timonol beat Valet in the teams? We're about to find out now, as we are underway in Mexico. And immediately a little bit of wheel spin there for David Akine as he tries to cover off Istvan Single. You can see Marsa swerving around, trying to pick which of the Go teams to follow into the first corner. It looks like Single is going around the outside of David Akine and snatched the lead into the first couple of corners as it's getting a bit messy behind. Van den Hudding has gained a few places, got up to 5th as Cantaneri flies over the curbs in the background as he tries to fight Mattia Feligni and Zabralekis. But look, the 2 Optiminals of Van Leeuwen and Galmamadis going side by side, with Zabralekis in the middle of this as well. Oh, big moment there as Van Hudding gets loose, and so too does Zabralekis as Feligni nearly gets pushed in behind from Persis Miriam there, but just gets away with that one. But a perfect start for Istvan Single. It almost felt like David Akine was deliberately not fighting too hard for that one, although I guess Single just took it by and got the slipstream again. Big save for Van den Hudding through the S's there. Doesn't look like a comfortable car to drive, that yellow Valet, does it? But action-packed start, and it is a Single to the 4, exactly where he'd want to be then at the end of this first lap. As we see another move around the outside, comes Van Leeuwen trying to clear Cedric Bill, just leaving enough space. Bill holds on around the outside into the Nigel Mansell corner, but it's Van Leeuwen that muscles his way through. Cedric Bill down to P6, not the start the Frenchman had in mind.
Yeah, and as a result of all this squabbling, all the Bill's going to come back at him. They're going side by side down the straight, and there's a lot of squeezing going on there, but they've lost quite a bit of time to the guys ahead. So Van den Hudding fairly comfortable there in his 4th position as Van Leeuwen just swipes over the nose of Bill. But yeah, it seemed, as you said, Aghayan kind of gave the position away to Single. I'm not sure if that was...
here comes Van den Hudding. Round the outside into turn 4 and 5. That'll give him the inside for 5. Does Marsa see him coming in time? Yes, he does. A little bit of contact between the duo, and Van den Hudding asserts his way through. Brilliant move by the Dutchman there, and Marsa was sort of a little bit caught out there after a strong qualifying, strong start for the race. Marsa pushed down to 4th, and that's absolutely key for Valet now because their main championship rivals are the 2 ahead of them, Single and Aghayan. Aghayan already a second behind his teammate now, although he does set the fastest second sector of the race so far then. So Van den Hudding is doing the job right now. Canzonieri really needs to start finding a way through some of these drivers to try and keep Valet's chances alive here.
Yeah, and like you said, Van den Hudding seems to have the race pace. He didn't quite have the qualifying pace, but it seems he's going to be someone to be looking out for. As like you said, we got optimal 1st and 2nd, but can he get in amongst them?
That is the question we are keen to find out. Interesting comments there as we see Feligny passing Alekis. So Alekis losing a place after getting right involved in the middle of the top 10 on the first lap. There's Vincentievich trying to, I think he's just been passed by Borutovsky, who started from the pit lane, didn't he? We've unfortunately seen Felipe Salvino come into the pits very early on, I believe to repair damage there, as we cut back to Galnamadis trying to fend off Canzonieri, and doing so successfully here. Sweezy ran the outside of that looks like Vincentievich, and a little bit Vincentievich tries to shut the door a little bit too late and has to go into the runoff there on the exit of turn 5 there. So it's getting very, very interesting a bit further down as some of the drivers like O'Reilly and Borutovsky both starting the pit lane, starting to get involved in the mix now. But yeah, up front, Single has actually seen Aghayan close back in on him, and there is a 1.9 second gap between Aghayan and Van den Hudding at the moment then. So yeah, Van den Hudding not exactly closing in on the top 2 just yet, but he's still very much in play, especially if he can get the mediums to last quite a way in this race. Alekis is one of the few on hard tyres, along with Borutovsky, Crawford and Salvino. So that's why Alekis has been losing a couple of positions. Here comes Canzonieri, uses a little bit of his push to pass and DRS to clear Galnamadis on the run into turn 1 there, and that is exactly what the Italian needed to do there. Next up, Cedric Bill, so easier said than done, that particular move, if that is in the coming, as we now see Miram passing Alekis for P10.
Yeah, and we saw Alekis earlier on the harder compound tyres, like you said, not getting the best traction, but also I think through the S's making his own racing lines up, it seemed, as there's definitely some corner cutting going on through the S's, as we got a big squabble here down the back end of the field. And
yeah, it's our 2 Australians fighting Vincentievich. So we've got Crawford and O'Reilly. Oh, Crawford nearly bumps into the back there, and David O'Reilly almost just shattering Terry Crawford and copying his lines there. Very, very closely indeed. So interesting, the 2 Australians in a sort of formation there, and Vincentievich sort of gets away with that one as he goes, all of them go really wide through the S's there, so that shows me that the rear, all those cars are not particularly stable.
Yeah, I don't think there was any nearly about it regarding contact there. There was definitely a nose up the back end of Vincentievich there, but he's still going okay, as Marsa seems to be clawing back Van den Hudding potentially here.
Maybe he's seen Van Leeuwen, who put that brilliant move on Bill early in the first couple of laps. Now he's starting to close in, so a little bit of pressure from behind. Here is Sweezy's start. Of course, he had that 4-place grip penalty, put him in the middle of the pack. Oh, got tapped around by his teammate Salvino. So Felipe Salvino, not the greatest debut ever, because Sweezy would be ruining that grip penalty because it put him right in a position to be whacked out by his teammate there.
Well, rule number 1 usually, and into the barriers, lost the front. I did see him though. He's came back out on a set of softs and then gone back into pit lane. So I don't know if he's had another incident.
I thought he started on the softs and then switched to the hards. So
so unless he went come out on the hards, and
yeah, I'm seeing
then
only
had a
one
further-
stop for Felipe Salvino. So yeah, 2 laps on the softs, and then he switched to.
Oh, who's that off in the background?
Oh dear, it's Van den Hudding. Van den Hudding spun coming out of the S's there, and we did say that Valet was looking a little bit unstable. And yeah, unfortunately, right when Valet did not need this, Van den Hudding has made a key mistake under pressure. Yeah, just too far over the curb, and lucky if he didn't hit the wall there. Just got on the brakes. Oh, millimeters between himself and the wall there. So that could have been curtains for Valet's chances there. At least Van den Hudding is still in it, but that was a heart-in-mouth moment.
Yeah, and that would have definitely... It was a bit too much. He went a bit shallow, I think, initially into the first turn-in, and that really upset when he had to change the direction, really upset the balance of the car, and obviously the lock-up trying to get the car stopped is not going to help his tyres either, so it's going to be a painful day, I think, now for Van den Hudding, as that's a move down the inside there for... That was...
Van Leeuwen on Marsa there. So yeah, Sander Van Leeuwen's been showing great pace these last couple of laps. He's been pretty much not only a couple of tenths off of his 2 teammates up the road, and much quicker than Marsa. He was 2 tenths quicker on that previous lap. Then Cedric Bildo has started to up his pace as well, and is only 1.9 seconds behind his teammate. So there could be a call from Go Team to let Bill through, especially now Bill is ahead of both Canzonieri and Van den Hudding here. But crucially for Optimal, that's 3 cars in the top 3 here. So all of a sudden, they're looking in an incredibly strong position, right? When Van den Hudding was threatening to depose them there.
Yeah, and further on, the shenanigans continues between Crawford and O'Reilly, and
Terry Crawford has got very defensive all of a sudden. Oh!
Yeah!
And O'Reilly has to cut across as he reacts to Crawford nearly dropping it entirely in front of him. So the Sim Spark lighting up the rears, and O'Reilly thinks that was a move made off track. So as a race director, he knows the rules better than most of us, especially me as it happens. So he's decided to let him through. There's a mistake from Miram there, just in 10th position. So Alecki's not quite close enough to take advantage of that one. And this is Boratovsky, who I believe is just retired from the race at the same corner. Oh! Lost it very early on, and a huge hit with the barriers. The engine has died, and that is a very, very sad end to Boratovsky's season. Not exactly what we wanted to see for the Slovakian.
No, and we're going to actually see Single and Aghayan not too far away up the road is Salvino Neo at the back of the field, if you look at the track map. So some back markers to deal with soon.
Yeah, it's 1 minute 20 the lap times here, and he's about, as you say, 1 minute 18 behind. So he should be about, by that logic, 3 or 4 seconds ahead.
That's him just up the road that you could just see just then.
Yeah, certainly with the pace differential. Salvino 124.2 last lap, 119.3 from Single, just a tenth quicker than Aghayan, who he's slowly starting to build the gap out from again. But yeah, David Aghayan, he's certainly, he was playing it fairly conservative at the start, which was probably the more strategic, smarter call, rather than trying to push Single out at the first couple of corners, which would not have been received well by anybody in the Optimal team, least of all Single himself. But yeah, it doesn't seem like there's Aghayan has been called off or anything. It's not like he's just decided to drop back and fight with Van Leeuwen for the rest of the race. He genuinely seems to think he is in this race, which is a good sign for the remaining 50 laps or so. Because we certainly don't want to see Optimal just running in formation and letting Single take the win unchallenged. We would love to see Aghayan be let off the leash, so to speak, to see what the rookie can absolutely do. He's certainly been so impressive since joining the championship, really incredibly consistent. To be top 6, fighting for P5 in your first ever season at FSR Pro, given that Aghayan had basically done like the Codemasters F1 games and not much else in SimRacing, from what I understand. He'd done 1 or 2 other rFactor 2 competitions, but it's really, really good to see him establishing himself, and he certainly could be a driver that we're talking about many more times in the future. So I think we're about to see Marsa having to make way for Bill here, and not a moment too soon, because Canzonieri had started to catch him. As into the pits comes Van den Hudding in the background. So his tyres, those mediums, clearly been put through a lot of wear after that spin, and he's decided to put another set of mediums on. So interesting. So this is Van den Hudding running a contra strategy. He's surely doing a 2 or 3 stop here potentially.
Yeah, And I think, well, unless he can try and, 9 laps into the race on a set of mediums isn't particularly good, considering the others seem to have fairly good pace. So
The hards on, sorry, not the mediums.
Oh, medium. Yeah, so he's going to go to hards, which will probably try and go to the end. Whether or not he's going to go for mediums for a final stint, or he can try and eke some softs out, well, we'll find out. As already out of pit lane, Van den Hudding down the inside of...
It's Kratochville, isn't it?
Kratochville, yeah.
And Jury keeps his nose absolutely in. Side by side they go, but it's Van den Hudding with the much fresher tyres, and Kratochville knows it, decides to back out. Jury, I believe, is streaming his point of view of this race. If you're on the FSR Discord, you should see a link to that, as actually we see Salvino being lapped and not really doing a great job of getting out of the way for poor Nando Massa, and that's backed Canzonieri and Galamardis both into the back of him as Salvino takes a very wide outside line at the final corner there, but he was caught at the stadium section, which is one of the worst possible places to be lapped in his defense there, as through goes Canzonieri, and I think Nando Massa is not going to be best pleased at that turn of events.
No, definitely, considering Massa has been going pretty well and has lost the back end of Bill. In the meantime, Aghai has also lost nearly a second, and pulled a bit of that back, so I wonder if he also got caught up as well, whilst they were trying to lap him.
And going back to, by the way, Van den Hudding, obviously going for the hards this early, this is an attempt to try and get a big undercut. It's probably, given that he was about 7th, when he pitted, wasn't he? It's not really going to put him in contention with Singular, but it might allow him to get sort of in between Van Leeuwen and Bill, depending on how good the undercut is, and indeed, if he is going to try and do the one-stop, as you say. As if Vincentievic going very, very wide through. He never looked at any point like making the apex through turn 5 there, it must be said, as this is a replay of Salvino. He was holding them up before. Oh, there we go. So I think that was just a case of wrong place, wrong time. If you're being very critical, you would have said get out of the way before the final corner there, rather than waiting until a little bit later. But it is his first race, so maybe we can expect a little bit of rustiness on this regard. He's not been lapped before in the championship, so let's hope Salvino, if it happens again, and given his pace differential, it's likely that he doesn't cause a similar incident again in the race.
Yeah, but for Massa, he's probably not going to be a particularly happy bunny, but he's still got the pace, and he's still fairly close to Canzonieri ahead, so it's not like Canzonieri's rocketing away after Bill, but now Bill's now got... Oh, what was that off? That's
It's Feligny. Oh dear, so Mattia Feligny's put the DRS car into the wall. He'd just been overtaken by Percy's Miram there. They were fighting for P8, and then he just lost the rear, so Feligny's mediums were starting to fade already, and we saw a big mistake from Van den Hudding. We've seen one from Feligny now as well, and he has opted to retire, so that's a disappointing end to the DRS man's season, and that means he's going to end the championship no better than P10. But certainly for a one-man team, Feligny has had some good displays so far this season. Certainly a driver with a fair bit of promise. Let's hope he comes back in the future and gets to deliver on it again in 2026, which he doesn't have long to wait, in fairness. So just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and well, essentially have the winter series as a bit of another practice sort of series, get his eye back in, and then you go again for the next season, which is it's not too far away.
Yeah, certainly. I think we're looking at very early March, as in the first day of March, as we see Salvino getting out of the way to let one of the optimal cars through. Must have been Galamardis, I would expect. But there is Single, 1.8 seconds now ahead of David Aghai. And Van Leeuwen, let's keep an eye on his lap times as well. 2/10 slower than Single. That last lap round is into the pits comes Mihailo Vincentievic. And what is Vincentievic going to try and do here? It's a similar strategy to Van den Hudding, isn't it? Pit out of trouble and hope that he can get a massive undercut that keeps him ahead of Crawford and O'Reilly, and also allows him maybe to challenge his teammate Kratochville.
Yeah, and as you said, Van den Hudding putting in a decent amount of pace. Aghai's still doing a fairly decent job of hanging on to Single as well up front, so I wonder if he's keeping his tyres pretty safe, and if he's going to put an attack I also wonder, is Single going to go for the win, or is he going to be, you kind of handed me the lead out of safety, and he's going to do a bit of a, Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger, Suzuka 91, and give the position back towards the end? I don't know, but still, many laps to go and a few pit stops to go.
He might, but I think it's probably more likely that Istvan, having not won in quite a while, will probably be quite keen to take the win himself then. And David Akine, certainly if he continues his performances in the future, as Vincentievic again goes very, very wide, I would not be surprised if somebody protests track limits at the end of this one.
He seems to like that unorthodox line through that section.
If anything, it might actually be costing him time, if anything.
Well, I think so. He keeps seeming to clump the sausage curb on the entry, which is forcing him out wide. So I think I'd brake a little earlier if it was him.
Easier said than done, but nonetheless, here is Nando Massa continuing to put pressure on Canzonieri, keen to get that place back that he lost while lapping Salvino, or just after lapping Salvino, I should say. But yeah, Canzonieri now the best hope for Valle at the present moment. Van den Harding 32 seconds off the lead, so it'd be interesting to see his overall time. He's about 28 seconds behind Van Leeuwen. I think a pit stop at Mexico is around about, is it 25 seconds or so? The total pit time. It's one of the slower pits of the season.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but one thing I did see previous lap, Aleki's setting his personal best, so I don't know if those mediums are now starting to come alive on lap 14, where it was lap 13 for him. So is that something to keep in mind for the other drivers who would be going on to those harder compound tyres?
There's Salvino being lapped by Ruben van den Harding, and then deciding to retire then, so, or something happened there. Yeah, definitely retiring, so maybe he got disconnected there, because that didn't look like a intentional decision either way you cut it.
Yeah, generally, if I remember correctly, you have to be still in order to retire manually, so I think that was a disconnect there.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Now, the interesting thing here, Optimal, of course, locking out the first three positions. If you can see, there is a 27-second gap to Sweezy and about 21 to Aleki's, one of their teammates. So Optimal have got a lot of flexibility here to pit whenever they wish, essentially. And I wonder which of them they'd decide to pit first. You would think Singer would get the first call, given that he's leading the race and the championship. But yeah, there is, of course, potential that Cedric Bill might do what he did the last couple of races and do the one stop, just run longer than anybody on these medium tyres, and then give himself the sort of luxury of coming out into clear air for that final stint, essentially.
Yeah, and like I was saying, it was Massa is closing or trying to close that gap again onto the back of Canzonieri. That's a lot of sideways action there for Galamatis. That's not going to be looking after the tyres particularly well, but it's definitely also a sign that those mediums are starting to fall away. Yeah,
and if the mediums are not the easiest tyre to keep alive on lap 15 of 61, then that could potentially be good news for Zabra Alekis, who's been lapping fairly consistently in the sort of low 120s at the moment. Van den Harding on his hards is lapping the 119.6s though, which is significantly quicker. So Van den Harding is about 4 seconds behind Amin Sweezy and continuing to close by about a second a lap then. So that's the difference between used mediums and fresh hards, with a very, very quick driver behind the wheel then. So yeah, Van den Harding is not out of this one completely yet. There he is. You can just see Sweezy disappearing, or not disappearing, starting to close in from the horizon, essentially. So it's a weird phrase there. But that is what Van den Harding will be trying to catch as quickly as possible, because once he clears Sweezy, then he can potentially start to close in on the pit window for the leaders, essentially. And that's how I think Van den Harding can sort of stay in this race, or at the very least, somewhat help his teammate Canzonieri here.
Yeah. And it's with each lap, it's starting to look a little bit downfall. That's Tocqueville, isn't it? That's having a bit of a pirouette.
Yeah, our resident race steward. Oh, just arriving right in front of our race director, David O'Reilly, or part-time race director anyway, is the evidence of this. And yeah, we nearly had, another big incident. But yeah, Tocqueville Lovely pirouette there, but sadly no style points on offer for the driver of car number 42. And again, he gets a bit frustrated and lights up the rear tyres on exit as well. So this has not been the most gratifying or coveting glory couple of moments for Jericho Totchville, sadly.
Yeah, the helmet's looking very reminiscent of that of David Coulthard's, and I think been channeling part of Coulthard's earlier career with Williams there.
Oh, he's not hit the pit wall yet, so and it's the final race of the season, so we'll see for the Czech Republic driver. There's his teammate Vincentievich again, clobbering the curb, and this time he lifts well off to a blade of blue flags for Canzuri Master and Ganla Martis. So that was sort of you could sort of see that one coming, as Canzuri has actually started to pull a little bit of a gap, and he's starting to close in on Bill. What has happened to Aghayan? He is coming to the pits, I think, on that previous lap while we were looking at the replay, and emerged in 9th position there.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he has pit. I think Aghayan might have made a mistake then, unless he's gone on to another set of mediums. There's Crawford spinning, just arresting that one through the S's there, and that lets O'Reilly through. So the battle of the Australians continues there, and now it's David O'Reilly in that 12th position with Terry Crawford on those harder tyres, trying to get some heat into them somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aghayan's previous lap seemed to be a bit off from
122,
everyone else.
yeah.
Oh, 122.
I think he must have made a mistake. Well,
But then 2 seconds off the pace or so, that's not enough to go from second to ninth.
maybe he did pit the lap before then.
Yeah.
Anyway, in comes Single and Canzonieri, our two title protagonists. So this very much suggests that a Single is trying to cover off the undercut from Aghayan, and Canzonieri is just shadowing his championship rival strategy here, hoping that he can make something happen.
Well, there's Aghayan right behind him now. They're right together.
Yeah, so this has worked well for David Aghayan then to get into the slipstream. There is Canzonieri just ahead of his teammate Van den Hudding then, so this strategy has not worked out quite so far for Van den Hudding. All those two, both of the valleys on hard, but Single interestingly seems to have gone on a second set of mediums, so that commits him at the very least to a 2-stop.
Yeah, so Canzonieri potentially rolling the dice. Is he going to go to the end
And
of this?
Aghayan as well, for that matter. Is
Yeah.
also on the mediums.
So it seems as though our Valley trying to go for a one-stop strategy. At the moment as it stands, Van den Hudding being held up a bit here by Canzonieri.
So is yeah, it's actually Sweezy that's holding both of them up on the old mediums. So again, this has not gone to plan for Canzonieri. He can't really use those fresh hard tyres because the cell spot is very much blocking the way in the middle sector, where it's much difficult to pass. He's going to try and go for a kamikaze move into the Ferrosol hairpin. No, he decides against that one. Meanwhile, here is Aghayan. As into the pits comes Miram from 4th position, so it looks like Single is going to get a great run on Zabralekis, who just keeps his movements predictable to the outside line, and Aghayan a little bit frustrated. The DRS open on his car. Can he get past on the brakes into the first corner and the first chicane? Yes, he can. So Aghayan doesn't lose any time behind his teammates. So that's an interesting scenario, because you've got both of them fighting for the win and one of them for the championship. So Alecki sort of didn't want to favour one or the other there.
Well, yeah, and the other thing for Alecki's actually, where he's on those hard compound tyres, he only has to do one pit stop onto the mediums, where the others have got to do another pit stop onto the harder compound tyres. So, I mean, depending on what Alecki's pace is like over the next few laps, he's still, potentially in for the chance of a podium.
Good news for Valet. Looks like Sweezy is pit for the soft tyres, surprisingly, falling down to 11th. So that has released Canzonieri, and Van den Hudding has another moment over the curves, but this time saves it with a last-minute correction there. So certainly, watching Van den Hudding through the S's, it's a little bit like what they say about Max Verstappen, somewhat like what Alex Albon always used to say, which is like it's like playing a first-person shooter with the mouse sensitivity set to maximum, where the car is twitching and it's like arresting it as it happens, essentially. So high-speed reflexes there from Ruben Van den Hudding, as this Van Sinkel, unsurprisingly, on the medium, sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 18.2, and he's pulled the gap out to Aghayan to 1.3 seconds there.
Yeah, here's Vincentievich, I guess, taking a...
Well, again, he cannot get off that orange curb, can he?
He just loves it. It's almost like he's doing a bit of rally crossing or something, just jumping the curb there. But it's not helping his lap time at all.
It is Costas Galnamadis, who was sort of running at the back of that train, wasn't he? Behind Canzonieri and Massa. And him and Massa both running along in this first stint, as indeed is Cedric Bill and, of course, Sander Van Leeuwen. I think Van Leeuwen is the big danger man right now. If he can get the mediums to... I feel like all of our top four seem to be shaping up for the one-stop the way they're driving at the moment.
Yeah, and like you said, Van Leeuwen at the moment playing himself into this contention for a win. It looks like it could be a complete optimal washout here today at Mexico City, but obviously still has to get those tyres as far into the stint as possible. And Bill, who's been very good at doing it these last couple of races, and it's brought him quite a lot of joy as a result of it, currently not in the optimal position.
Well, going back to Van Leeuwen, the Dutchman, he has only done 3 other races this season, so we've not seen him since round 4 in Austria, so that was back in August. So Van Leeuwen, his results were 4th in Bahrain, 7th in Australia, and 4th in Austria as well. So he's been very, very close, threatening to get a podium, and this could be his best chance yet, not just of the podium, but of the win too. So Van Leeuwen is certainly showing what he can do. Both him and Akhayan, I think, putting themselves forward to be the successors to Istvan Singal in next season, aren't they?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, it would be a shame if Singal does decide to step away from the championship, but he's definitely shown, particularly in the early stages of this championship, at one point it looked like who was actually going to beat him, because he looked unstoppable, as who we see. This is Van Leeuwen, and there's another driver in there.
So Riley.
Yeah,
Master's
coming in, yes.
Master just come in, yes, as we were saying that. So there he is. You can just see the Go team in the background. But yeah, he'll come in right behind David O'Reilly there. Always a bit nervous when you've got pit boxes right next to each other. Where does Van Leeuwen come out? He comes out onto the softs, if we've read that correctly. Saying the same on race view and on the on-screen graphics. And he's going to come out comfortably ahead of Zabralekis on the hards. And so Van Leeuwen crucially finds clear air here. But this is an unconventional strategy, so definitely not doing the one-stop anymore, but aggressive to go onto the softs. Maybe he's seen what Sweezy's been able to do, setting personal bests on his set of softs, and he's decided, right, let's have a quick stint on here and try and pass Akhayan and Singal on track.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming he's going to then come back in and do another stint on the mediums, but still, he's got to try and not use all his sweeties up with the soft straightaway, because he's going to still try and eke out a few laps on these tyres, potentially around 10 12 laps, I would expect, on the softs.
Yep, so now it's Bill and Galnamadis are the 2 leaders yet to pit then. How much longer are they going to go? Because now they know Van Leeuwen's going to undercut, but he is on the soft, so Bill seems to be doing his most recent strategy that's been so effective so far, which is just run longer than anybody else. Galnamadis, he's had enough because he was starting to go into the 120.8s there, so his lap times are really suffering. Bill is in the 120.5s at the present moment, being closed in on, but yeah, Cedric Bill, as we said, he is going for the hat-trick, 3 wins in a row, and it definitely feels like it's still very open at the moment. There are 4 drivers, I think, that are very much in contention the way this is playing out so far of being in contention for victory. And they are Bill, Singal, Akhayan and Van Leeuwen, our top 4 at the moment.
Yeah, and it's essentially we've got 4 drivers here and 3 different strategies going on at the moment. You've got Bill, as you said, going and trying to extend as far as he can to go on the hards. He's pretty much, as it stands, I'd say odds-on favourite for this win, the way that things are panning out for him. The fly in the ointment here is Van Leeuwen on that audacious strategy on the softs and how that's going to pan out. And as we know, both Singal and Akhayan are going to have to go to the hards. So we're expecting a pit stop from all the top 4. It's just how it's going to pan out on the strategy.
Yeah, Nando Master, of course, just pit a lap ago, and he's 9/10 behind Van den Hudding then. So this is crucial for Valle to hold on to this track position if they can. But Master, the Hungarian, very fired up after losing ground earlier in this race, isn't he? To try and get it back. And Master's done has only used medium tyres so far in this race. A reminder, just in case Olivier Demolins is watching this again after Spa, where he did the whole race on mediums. You do have to use 2 different types of compound now. That's been formalised in the rules from mid-season onwards. So here comes Marsa then. He's got the tyre advantage at the moment. Fresh tyres, and they are 1 compound softer than Van der Hudding's hard ahead. Van der Hudding clobbers the curbs at the first corner and just survives a big moment as he gets a wheel on the curb and drifts the back end out. So Van der Hudding is really pushing to keep Marsa behind, and in the process he's trying to protect his teammate Canzonieri as well. But at the moment for Valle, they've sort of had to commit to this hard tyre strategy, haven't they? Because of the spin for Van der Hudding and Canzonieri qualifying not all that well and struggling to make progress otherwise. They've sort of had to commit to essentially a very, very long middle stint in this race, or potentially, if they're just doing the one stop, then the hards are going to be very, very slow, but they're going to be on them for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the fact how Van der Hudding had to pit so early as a result of damaging those tyres in that spin, I cannot see him going to the end on his current set of tyres. So either that is going to be down to the Freds, essentially these hard compound tyres as Aleckis comes in to pit lane, and I would expect to see either he's going to manage to eke out enough that he's going to have to stint in the softs, but I'd most likely expect him to go to the mediums.
That's worrying though for Canzonieri and Van der Hudding if Seb Aleckis can do only 25 laps on a hard tyre. And I believe Terry Crawford also doing the same on. Terry, I think, did about 22 laps or so on his first stint on the hards. As we see Van Leeuwen on the softs, sits the fastest lap of the race, 7/10 quicker than Akhayan ahead of him, 1:18.171. So as we look at Marsa continuing to put pressure on Van der Hudding, and Van der Hudding's been a very, very good defensive driver at various points this season. Last couple of races, he has basically just been holding up single for a spot on the podium, essentially, as we look at David O'Reilly in the 7 Arrows car, deciding to let Cedric Bill, our race leader, through by cutting the track there.
Yeah, and Bill still, wow, he's hemorrhaging time to single now. Obviously, a few laps ago it was 7 seconds, it's now 4, or just, yeah, it is 4 seconds now. So how much longer can we see Bill carrying on? I'd expect to see him in the next few laps, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we are getting towards half distance here on lap 26 of 61. And Nando Marsa is closing inexorably on the back of Van der Hudding. The DRS is open, but he decides not to go for a risky move into turn 1. He'll get another chance on the run out of turn 3 and into 4. And again, Van der Hudding has a snap at the rear here. Those tyres are not enjoying life under the service of Mr. Van der Hudding here.
But Van der Hudding, excellent on so much later on the brakes. We saw this in Kota as he was defending from single when the pit team orders got involved there. But again, starting to put on a big defensive display is Van der Hudding.
Yeah, this is important for Marsa as well, because he is essentially in a fight with Canzonieri for 5th in this race, the way it's playing out so far. And he needs to pass the second valet in order to get into that fight here. So Van der Hudding, again, doing a great job. It's just, from Valet's point of view, it's a shame it's not Istvan Single that he's fighting with, it's Marsa instead. But I guess Marsa will have to do in this instance, given where they are in the race. There's a sort of a reality that can't really be fought against there. Istvan Single, 1:18.9, so nearly 2 seconds quicker there than Cedric Bill, 1:20.2. And here comes Marsa, much closer on this occasion. DRS wide open, and he's got the inside line. How much later will Van der Hudding try and go around the outside? He's going to find the door shut in his face, and Nando Marsa firmly but fairly, I believe, gets through into P6. And now Gautam Amadis fancies a run at the Dutchman.
Yeah, definitely looked, he's a lot closer and able to get the move done. Van der Hudding definitely fought back. You see how much later Van der Hudding was able to go into the corner, but Marsa had it covered off, and great move there.
Yeah, that will certainly be great for Hungarian fans of Nando Marsa. There was a comment from Zolt Zux, our world championship driver, earlier saying, Marsa, Bill is faster than you, when he had to let him through earlier. But yes, certainly, Master, if Bill were to pit now, he'd come out behind Nando Master. So Master has certainly got quite the undercut. As we see more sliding there from the back end of Van den Hutting. He just about gets it back on track in time on the exit of 12 into that turn 13 hairpin there. But you do sense Van den Hutting is feeling the pain of having to pit early onto the hardest possible compound here. It is sliding around like crazy.
Yeah, it's not ideal, this current situation. Whether or not we'll see maybe Van den Hutting pitting again for another set of hards, as that looks...
Zach Hyan moving out the way for Van Leeuwen on the soft tyres. Here comes Galamadis up the inside for P7, and Van den Hutting this time is able to block the move in time there, but that really relied on Galamadis backing out on the inside there.
Yeah, definitely got very, very close there. Nearly a front wing loss there, as we're going to see how close it really was on the nose cam.
Well, here we go. Oh, just a few inches there, but Galamadis luckily judged that to perfection. Difficult to see the front wing from the cockpit cam, which is forced in this series, so you do forget. As here's Bill now, he's finally been caught by Single, and he's backing Single into Van Leeuwen. This is absolutely critical moment in the race here. As Sander Van Leeuwen, his eyes will be lighting up like Christmas. Into the pits comes Cedric Bill right before he loses the lead, but his Single, who's just gotten back into the lead, about to lose it again to his teammate. How hard will he fight Sander Van Leeuwen here? A little bit of push to pass used by Single. They both get DRS, of course, from the back of Cedric Bill. Will Sander Van Leeuwen go for a bold move around the outside? And Single decides to back out on the inside. Very, very key decision there for Istvan Single, and our championship leader decides to let Van Leeuwen have a go in the lead and hopes that those softs will wear spectacularly in the next couple of laps.
But Bill has come out behind Galamatis, so Galamatis is going to put on a bit of a defensive display if there's any sort of team orders to be played here. And Bill managed to get out ahead of Miram. Obviously, we were saying that he was potentially going to come out behind Miram, but he's managed to find
a few more seconds, yeah.
Yeah, but interesting stuff there from Van Leeuwen, as we see Van den Hutting still struggling on those harder compound tyres. They've definitely screamed enough, I think. But yeah, Van Leeuwen getting it all crossed up into turn one there, trying to overtake Single, and I think Single, relinquished that position, thought of the championship, and was like, okay, after you, Claude.
But interestingly, we're talking about Van den Hutting struggling. Actually, Cantoneri's last lap was 2/10 slower as well, so it seems both valets are not getting the time out of these hard tyres then that they need. Nando Marsa was about 7/10 quicker than Cantoneri the previous lap. He's about 3.3 behind him at the moment, so Van den Hutting holding him up as again he almost hits the wall there, and this is looking a bit scary now because Galamadis is going to fancy his chances, knowing that Cedric Bill's behind on fresh hards as well. And Bill, would be interested to see if the Go team is any better at getting the hard tyre into the right zone for it to sort of deliver lap time here, because obviously Bill will have fresher hards, much fresher than Van den Hutting, but he's got to clear potentially Galamadis as well. If he's stuck in a train behind Van den Hutting and Galamadis, that could really hurt Cedric Bill's strategy here.
Well, what we saw from Alekis earlier on in this race, obviously still on those hard compound tyres, it seemed as though he kind of like allowed a few laps just to bring the tyres up to temperature, and it wasn't until after I think 12 laps or so we actually started to see some personal bests appear from Alekis. So I think obviously the way to go is it's still all three of the Optiminals all over
Van
each other.
Leeuwen has slowed down all of a sudden. The tyres has absolutely hit a cliff on that car, because he's now backing Single back into Akine, and into the pits comes Van Leeuwen. I did think it was an interesting call, to put mildly, to go for the softs there. Van Leeuwen has only been able to get 8 laps out of them. So
Yeah.
now Akine is back in position thanks to that, to chase down Istvan Single. So was Van Leeuwen basically just being the hare and then backing Single into Akine there. It's a very, very interesting call there from the Dutchman. Yeah. But here comes Galamadis. Finally, he's got the run on Ruben Van den Hutting. The DRS opens now, and that will allow him to complete the move there. So I think Van den Hutting was just struggling to keep it in a straight line out the final corner, and that gave the Optimal the run. So Galamadis, the Greek driver, finally gets into the top 6 here, as here's Juri Kotochvil. Has he had a small moment through the S's as well? Oh, I say small, an absolutely massive spin there. and somehow just about does a 360 and gets it in the right direction before the wall appears in front of it.
So here's Van Leeuwen, and what happened to him, I feel like it's going to be a similar incident, I think.
He cuts
he's
the
just
track.
gone straight on, yeah.
Oh, this is very interesting. So he's cut the track and then deliberately slowed down a lot more than necessary. So I think he's made the decision to pit on this lap and decided to back single into Akheim. So is there a sort of pact between Sander Van Leeuwen and David Akheim here? I doubt there'd be a team within a team at Optima.
I don't know, like you can see there through the chicanes there that Van Leeuwen just had zero grip. Obviously he did go offline, so that would...
If anything, that's cost him a position to Marsa on exit here.
Yeah, and again, Van Leeuwen's come out on another set of softs, so he's gonna have to pit once again. So
here we go, move from Van Leeuwen on Marsa. Marsa, just about is left enough space there on the outside, but we've got a message there from Patrik Hanko, broadcast director, says Van Leeuwen got a track limits penalty for that corner cut, and that's also why he went into the pits then. So it wasn't necessarily because the tyres were dying on its own. It's because he was forced into that. So he had to slow right down to avoid getting a penalty.
Okay, so he's still on the original soft compound tyres then, but by getting that track limits penalty, it's most likely taken him out of the talk, so to say, for drivers who are potentially going to win this race, because that's at best I think he's just going to get the podium now. Now that he's had that penalty.
Yeah, bizarrely does put Canzonieri into third despite all the issues he's had in this race. So Van Leeuwen, to my money, is in a sort of fight for third or fourth depending on Cedric Bill's pace. Bill lapping in the 1:19.6s at the moment. He's closing right in on the back of Van der Hadding. Gallimardi's also setting personal bests. Now he has cleared the valet that he was stuck behind for quite a portion of this race. But Van Leeuwen clearing Marsen out means he is next up to challenge our lead valet driver, the man second in the championship, winner back in Bahrain, and desperately trying to keep his title hopes alive. He sort of needed a single to crash into the back of Van Leeuwen there, did Canzonieri. That didn't quite happen. Canzonieri would also have to win even if single doesn't score any points in order to win this championship. So it is sort of, as I said, the Christmas miracle is what Canzonieri needs. It's not quite happened so far. Lap 33 of 61, and here is Terry Crawford in the SimSpark in 14th position, having a moment, and bang into the wall, and I think that's Terry's day done.
Yeah, only 3 wheels on his wagon, yeah, I think by the looks of things, either he's going to find himself into a marshal's post, or he's going to try and limp it back to pit lane. I think he's going to limp it back to pit lane on 3 wheels.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think he has done this before in Singapore. It's not necessarily against the rules. The problem is he's got to do a whole half a lap in order to do this. If he can finish, that'd be 15th and a crucial point for SimSpark. But let's cut back to Canzonieri, who has got Van Leeuwen all over the bank. You see Canzonieri visually struggling with the back end of that car now. He's 13 seconds off the lead. Akheim is within half a second of single, fighting for the lead. But here comes Van Leeuwen. This is going to be a straightforward move before they even get to the first corner. Nearly a bit of contact there as Canzonieri decides to go right almost towards the wall to leave more than enough space to make sure Van Leeuwen didn't squeeze him there.
Yeah, Van Leeuwen not afraid to get his elbows out, it seems, here today. He's done it a few times, pulling a few rash moves, but he's still showing he's got pace on those soft compound tyres, and I believe that he's going to be going on to some mediums, as here is Cedric Bill going through, and that almost looked like mirror signal manoeuvre there.
Yeah, I think Van der Hadding must have either cut the first corner or made a mistake or something, and he's decided to let Bill through as a consequence. So something must have happened before this point, but let's see. Replay. Looks like he just lifts off. Maybe you got a track limits warning if you're going too far over the curbs, is the only thing I can think of there. But yeah, that was sort of the big talk going into this one. As here is Juri Kotochvel. What can the driver from the Czech Republic? Decides an interesting way of cutting the course there. Not intentional, of course, but just got wild over the curb and was heading towards the grass there. Crawford has made it to the pit lane, so luckily should be able to plonk a new front suspension on, and Bob's your uncle. He should be able to continue in the race, albeit 3 or 4 laps down on everybody else.
Yeah, the virtual pit crew can work wonders, unlike the real ones. here in virtual racing. And
But that's so good to see from Terry Crawford and the SimSpark team, because it's been a really tricky season for them. But Terry Crawford absolutely refusing to give up. He's scored 2 11th places so far this season, and then failed to finish his last 2 appearances at Austria and Belgium as well. So yeah, it's been a fallow period for SimSpark, but good to see Terry Crawford's indomitable spirit rising to the occasion, and he's decided, without risking anybody else in the race, is very, very experienced. I think Terry Crawford got right out of everybody's way, made it to the pits, and should, fingers crossed, be able to continue and get to the end in the final half of this race. However, let's hope he does 90% distance then, because that is glory when you go quite a few laps down. In comes Single. Now that is a big call on lap 35 of 61, but this is Istvan Singal. Is he going to go for the hards now, or does he go mediums and then softs to the end, commit himself to essentially a 3 or 4 stop strategy maybe?
Yeah, and well, he seems fairly leisurely in his pit entry. He didn't attack it like some of the others. But we'll see as Miram and the rest of the field come on through, and that means Van Leeuwen manages to go back into 2nd position, as we see.
This is close with Bill. Bill is going to have the higher speed going to the first corner, but he's a little bit too far back then. So he's on the same tyres as Istvan Singal. Bill has had a 7-lap undercut here. Now Istvan Singal's got clear air in which to unleash his pace. Van den Hudding also comes in for another set of hards. So, well, he did 27 laps on them, and he seems to be a glutton for punishment today, is Ruben Van den Hudding.
Yeah, and Bill's going to want to try and get something done very quickly here, as Kotochville's still trying to find different lines through this sector.
It's a bit of a harem-scarum ride.
Yeah.
Watching Jura Kotochville there. It's a good thing he's a race steward as well, and he doesn't have to steward himself too much. Apart from, I think there was an incident on the formation lap at Spa that he did end up having. I think it was Scott Flack that awarded the penalty that time, our other steward. Big shout out to Scott Flack and everybody behind the scenes at FSR that's contributed across the season as well. And not just in Pro, but in World Championship as well, because it's been a big impact behind the scenes that has been able to make the show as good as it has been across the season, as now we see Massa gearing up for his chance to take on Giuseppe Canzonieri, the man 2nd in the championship. Massa on 15-lap-old mediums, Canzonieri on 19-lap-old hards. So Canzonieri, it'd be interesting to see how much longer he can go than Van den Hudding did. Is he going to try and match that 27-lap stint and then put another set of mediums on at the end, or is Canzonieri going to try and run even longer?
We'll see. I don't know if they're... Because Canzonieri obviously seems to be not having as many troubles as Van den Hudding was, but I still don't think he's going to be able to get to the end on those hards. Probably the safe bet is the mediums, I think. It just all depends how far he can go on his hards.
Yeah, Bill, by the way, did 28 laps on his mediums, so he is 1.1 seconds behind his Fansinger, keeping him honest at the moment in the sort of low 1 minute 20s, as in comes Ak Hyen then, so he was able to do a couple laps more, and is he going to go for the hards now as well?
I'd have thought so.
Well, he's got to use different compound to get to the end of this. He's only used mediums so far, so him and Single on similar strategies, and Ak Hyen potentially is going to come out behind Bill here. Here he goes, out of the pit lane exit. Through comes Massa, who is still behind Giuseppe Canzonieri in what is now the fight for P2. This has put Van Leeuwen back in the lead temporarily. There's Ak Hyen, and he's just ahead of Cedric Bill there, so absolutely crucial there. And Ak Hyen has gone, I believe, for the soft tyres here, so he has switched to the Van Leeuwen strategy.
Well, I feel like by doing that, Ak Hyen's forced himself to pit again, because I can't see any way that he's going to manage to get to the end of this race on a set of softs. It would be a big ask.
Is this a case of the softs are so much faster than the hard tyres that the time you gain is almost worth doing the extra stop here?
Potentially, but he would have to, ideally, not want to be in any traffic. And, he's got Single in front of him who's fairly quick, and Galamatis who's, I think he's on some older mediums. So he's got some passing to do before he finds himself in some fresh air.
As we see, one of the Optiminals letting some drivers through there. Or that might have been Vincentievic, actually. But yeah, certainly this is what I absolutely love about this is Van Leeuwen now comes in. So he did 9 laps and then 7 laps. I believe that was on the same set of softs. As there is Terry Crawford, who sadly, after that amazing repair job, has decided to call in. And there's Van Leeuwen then, exiting the pits. He switched back to the mediums then. So his little adventure on the soft tyres comes to an end then, as he gets out in 7th position, just ahead of his teammate Zabarelekis, who had shifted towards the pit window, but is covered off by that pit stop. Massa, by the way, still 6/10 now behind Cantoneri, and Galamatis is closing on them. So it's these three once again in the same order. They were fighting for 4th or 5th. Now they're fighting for the lead.
Yeah, and Cantoneri, can he... Well, I can't imagine he's going to hold on to the lead here with Massa on some fresher medium compound tyres, as that's, what was it, Aghai going round the outside there, I think, of single.
Yeah, that was a bit bizarre. So certainly knowing who's on the softs, he thought, okay, fair play, let's not hold each other up then. So yeah, there we go. Early decision made just before the S's, and didn't lose Istvan Single too much time there. So yeah, you got to think that it's an unusual situation. It was Vincentievic who just tried to take turn 13 far too quickly and was never going to make the corner, and decides to use it as an opportunity to let the cars through to lap him. So Akhayan sets the fastest lap of the race on the soft tyres, 1 minute 18.0. Galamatis' pit decided not to stay stuck behind Canzeri and Massa for the 2nd stint in a row, and that means Akhayan's less than 3 seconds behind them now. Oh, well, that explains it. Oh, he hit the wall and lost his front wing. So that's why Galamatis is actually coming rather than what I just said.
Yeah. Big old impact there, but luckily only just a front wing loss there. That could have been so much worse for Galamatis.
Yeah, certainly could have. And we saw lucky escapes for both Van den Hudding and indeed, was it, who was it who also had the spin that nearly hit the wall? There's one to go teams, wasn't it? They had a big moment there.
Yeah.
I forget which one. It certainly wasn't Bill. I think it was Miriam, wasn't it, who had a big moment. It's the S's are proved in real life to be quite fearsome, and I think that's reflected very, very well here. But now Akhayan, he is seeing Massa and Cantoneri closing up to each other in front of him, and this is crucial for Massa's race that he clears Cantoneri before Akhayan shows up in the background. But Akhayan is gaining 1 minute 17.6, so nearly 2 seconds a lap there as David O'Reilly comes out the pits, gets immediately out of the way of the race leader Cantoneri. And if Akhayan is catching, you can be sure Single will not be far behind either.
No, and interestingly, looking at the way the car is reacting there for Canzoneri, it looks like he's managed to look after his tyres a lot better than Van den Hudding did. It's still making a few shapes, it's sort of struggling a little bit for traction, but nowhere near as horrible as we saw Van den Hudding earlier.
Yep, so the situation is Canzoneri 23 lap old hards, Nando Massa 19 lap mediums, David Akhayan 3 lap old softs, Sven Single 5 lap old hards, and Cedric Bill 12 lap old hards. So I think Single, I can say with some confidence, is going to the end. Bill might struggle a little bit, but he is the tyre whisperer infamously. He might find a way, but he's 3 seconds now behind Single. And actually, Sander Van Leeuwen on 2 lap old mediums is about 6.5 seconds behind and closing as Akhayan takes a liberal amount of curb through turn 13 there, and he is right behind the both of them. So can Akhayan make a double move? He's certainly got to clear Massa right now, and he's got a brilliant chance to do so. Gets to the outside. Look at the amount of traction that the softs give relative to even the medium tyres. DRS will open now, and that should allow Akhayan to sweep away, even though Massa will also get it from being stuck behind Canzoneri up to this point. Yeah,
and essentially with that tyre set between Massa and Canzoneri, Massa's mediums are actually quite old, so in this sort of situation, Canzoneri was pretty much at a stalemate ahead of Massa, but it's not going to be the case ahead of Akhayan. I wouldn't be surprised to see Akhayan going through before we even get to the end of this lap. Such is the pace
Well, he's got to clear Canzonieri as quickly as possible because otherwise he's not going to be able to get the gap on Istvan Singal, so he can pit and have a reasonable chance of catching back up and winning the race, which is certainly the scenario that's developing here because of that decision to go for the softs. Zach Hine has put himself in a situation where he's got to make the moves. If he'd done the same strategy as Singal, he almost certainly would have come out behind. There's always a big moment into turn 12 there, just about arrested there. Amazing reaction time there from David Akhayan. But yeah, being stuck in the dirty air of Canzonieri could well also wear out his softs as well. That is the other danger here.
Yeah, and it was definitely a move he was planning there with Akhayan, but I think his best idea probably is to sit him behind Canzonieri and get him into turn 1 with the DRS, bit of push to pass here, and he's already lining up. He's going to be side by side and already passed as they come into turn 1.
There we go. Almost looked like neither of them got DRS there, I thought for a second Canzonieri's rear wing had opened, but I think that's just a white text for the sponsor in the middle. There we go, now it opens, as he's behind, of course, in the detection zone. But there we go, David Akhayan retakes the lead, crucially, but on this strategy, he has got to come in again, whereas Istvan Singal doesn't. The other problem as well is if Akhayan can't pull a big enough gap to come out ahead of Cedric Bill. He did in that previous stint, but now he's got to do it all over again. Cedric Bill is only about 6 seconds behind him right now. Zach Hine really has got quite the job to do. Canzonieri is sort of certainly going to be fighting with Nando Marsa for essentially P4 or P5 once they'll filter out on exit. It's going to be very close between Canzonieri, Marsa, Van Leeuwen and Bill, I think, for what could well be third place.
Yeah, and realistically, I think Akhayan's got about 5 laps, I think, to try and pull this gap before his tyres start to fall off. What is going to help him though, as it looks like Canzonieri's coming into pit lane, and he does. Can Singal will Marsa hold up Singal at all, which is going to be a big help to Akhayan.
Well, they are fellow countrymen, of course, even though they are on different teams. And they did get very, very close. 2 guys for comfort in Singapore, if you remember, where they tangled on the pit exit, which was very, very unfortunate. 2-1 does not go. Canzonieri, though, after a really long stint, 25 laps on the hard tyre, which is about what we'd expect, comes out right ahead of Ruben van den Hudding, but Van den Hudding will have the DRS, might fancy a run, but decides not to give his teammate any grief whatsoever, which is quite sensible. I think he didn't quite have the run either way then. So pretty much perfect time for Canzonieri to pit and get to the end on those mediums now, but he will have to clear Zabralekis quickly and then hope that he can get involved with the Van Leeuwen, Bill, and of course we don't know where Marsa and Akhayan are going to. It's Marsa that will be the key one here. What he decides to do next is going to be absolutely crucial, because if he pits out the way of Istvan Singal, it really plays into Singal's hands.
Yeah, as we see once again, Canzonieri and Van den Hudding bottled up behind Alekis here, and Canzonieri on those fresh medium tyres.
Yep, certainly. Valet looking to try and turn around this race at least a little bit, as this is Zabralekis on the lap or 2 ago. So this is before, this is as he pit, of course, and came out behind him. So we kind of saw that as, move being made. Singal goes up the inside of Nando Marsa into the first corner there. In the end, Singal made it pretty academic there. He is into second place, 5.2 seconds down on Akhayan. Akhayan still lapping in the high 117s, Singal in the low 119s. Yeah, DRS made the move quite comfortably in the end.
Yeah, and although the car protesting a little bit there on turning, but seemed a fairly easy move there from the championship or champion-elect at the moment, as Singal is in second position.
So Singal really just needs to play it fairly conservatively now, keep these tyres live, and he can get to the end, because he's only going to be in real trouble if Akhayan can gain, let's say, over 10 seconds or so by the end of this stint then. If he's because then he might be able to pit clear Marsa quickly and then catch up to him, depending, of course, clear Bill rather. We know Marsa on 23 lap old tyres, so he's done monster stints on the mediums. I think Marsa is holding out potentially for the softs, which he's got to do to get to the end essentially, unless he pits now and goes for the hards.
Yeah. In Marsa he comes, so saying that, I think it is possible, as he does go for softs. You know, he's coming towards the end of the race, less fuel on board, so the car's going to be lighter, and that is going to be well, what's that? 15 laps is it he's going to have to do? If my maths is
Crucially,
correct.
he's got both the valets ahead of him, so more defensive manoeuvres needed from Van den Hudding, who's using the DRS to keep up with Canzonieri at the moment, despite being on older tyres here. So Van den Hudding has been put into the unglamorous role of roadblock, it seems, for the third racing succession.
Yeah, and he's proven to do a good job of it. So I think Valley eSports has employed quite a good driver at roadblock.
He's won a couple of races. We shouldn't forget that as well.
Yeah, he was monster at the start of the season, and there was an amazing battle at Silverstone between himself and Single. Unfortunately for Hudding, just missing out on the second to last lap, but he has shown in all areas of his racecraft that he is a top driver that's going to be, well, one to watch come next season.
Here's a replay of the moment I think we just saw of him getting a bit sideways in the S's, and again the cat-like reflexes spring into action over the curb at turn 9, 10, 11 and 12. Oh no, 12's the next one, but either way, Van den Hudding, certainly if we were to give an award for best rookie pro driver of the season, Single did do the previous season in the Pro Championship, so that rules him out, but I think it'd be very close between the likes of Bill, Canzonieri and Van den Hudding. I think it'd be a very, very close between Van den Hudding and Bill for me. I think Van den Hudding has had a bit more bad luck than Bill, especially in these last couple of races where he's been forced into a support role, whereas Bill has easily been the standout in Go Team. As in comes Amin Suizi in the cell spot, finished 10th at Suzuka in his World Championship debut for the team. Which was great to see as well. He's got 6 points on the board, so actually Cellspot is, I think, overall the 5th ranked team in the World Championship, which in a more populated season of teams might be seen as a bigger achievement, but nonetheless, I think as a personal achievement, that was great to see for Amin Suizi, and funnily enough, he's also fighting for P10 now, albeit quite a way behind Galnamadis on that set of mediums that should see the Tunisian get to the end on that set of tyres. Then, as we cut back to Zaba Elekis fighting against Miram, Nando Marso set a purple middle sector, hunting down Van den Hudding on his soft tyres. Zaba Elekis just pit 2 laps ago for the mediums, and Miram pit 9 laps ago for those hards. So, yeah, this is where Zaba Elekis needs to make this move quickly to keep Optimlaw on top, so that if anything bizarre happens in these final phases of the race, the final phases of the season, they should still be in a position to take the championship from Valet. They've got 3 cars ahead of Valet. They only really need 2 ahead, as through Miram comes Zabralekis there, and not much that the Canadian can do to hold him up there on those older hard tyres.
No, not at all. And wondering whether or not Akhayan is going to stop.
He might have to. His lap times are starting to. He's only about 2/10 quicker than Single now, so the charge is halted. So either he is saving tyres to try and get to the end, as you imply, or more likely, I think the softs are already starting to lose their effectiveness after 10, 11 laps, and now he is in a position where he's just got to pick when to pit. He's 11 seconds ahead of Bill and 12 ahead of Van Loon, so he come out in 4th if he pit right now.
Yeah, I'm assuming he'll come out on another set of softs, so he'll be putting some blistering lap times towards the end, which would be a race to the podium, or is it just going to put his neck on the line and his tyres on the line and see if he can make it all the way to the finish with 11 laps to go?
Speaking of neck on the line, here comes Marsa on Van den Hudding. Oh, they almost arrived together at the apex there, and Van den Hudding, by hook or by crook, somehow comes out ahead, and again, it's almost part of his racing line now to spin up the rear tyres almost to scare Marsa off, but that's not going to work. Round the outside comes the Go team into turn 5. Are they going to make contact here? Over the curb goes Van den Hudding, leaving just enough room, plenty of room, as he's forced to the outside there, goes off track. He's not going to be able to turn that into a move, surely, and Marsa's got the inside, he's got the place, and he's up to 6th position. 4 seconds now separate him from Canzonieri, so good effort from Van den Hudding, but he's running out of toys to play with here.
Yeah, and once again for Van den Hudding displaying amazing late braking into turn 1. That seems to be his party trick here today, but just not quite enough to hold off Massa.
Sander Van Leeuwen, by the way, 6/10 behind Cedric Bill. So this will be a crucial moment in the race. Van Leeuwen, 11-lap-old mediums, Bill, 21-lap-old hards. You would think here, with a 10-lap difference in tyre life, that Van Leeuwen is the one in the box seats here. And yeah, Bill has just sort of got to hold on, because these two could well end up fighting Akhayan when he eventually has to pit at the end here, unless David Akhayan is going to turn into Cedric Bill all of a sudden and discover a spare 10 laps he's got in these tyres, because they are starting to fade a bit, even though that last lap was still 4/10 quicker than Istvan Singal.
Yeah, and Akhayan not really losing out at all to Singal. In fact, I think the mistakes happened from Singal, because the gap's gone up to 9.3 seconds between Akhayan and Singal. So I just wonder, can Akhayan...
Yeah, I think David might be trying to get to the end. I think you're right. So we'll have to see if that plays out for him, but it's going to be very tense. The gap's still 7.4 seconds as we see Van Leeuwen moving around in the rearview mirror of Cedric Bill here, as David Akhayan pits, immediately proving us both wrong and deciding to put a fresh set of softs on. So this is going to become the battle for second then, at least for the time being, between Bill and Van Leeuwen. How far behind will David Akhayan emerge? He's just exiting the pits now, I believe, so he should be quite a distance behind. But I think there was a threat from Kanzaniri if he left out another lap longer. So out comes David Akhayan in 4th position, and now again he's got to make the charge here. 13 seconds off of the race win.
Yeah, and obviously Singal on some older, harder compound tyres. He's going to have to try and find his way past his two teammates.
Oh! And he hits the back, does Van Leeuwen. Well, certainly if they took each other out, that would have been great for David Akhayan, but not so much for Optimal, who can't really afford to lose the car. But I think Van Leeuwen has played the strategy a little bit more smarter. I hate to use a McLaren term, but those 2 stints on the soft, despite having that awkward moment where he had to slow right down to avoid the track limits penalty, as we see replay of the contact with Cedric Bill there. Bill lucky to survive that one, but that's given them a lot of flexibility, Sander Van Leeuwen. Whereas Akhayan was in a position where he sort of had to pit for the softs and stay out as long as he could. And that's allowed him to be undercut.
Yeah, so gap still coming down slightly, I think, between Singal, Bill and Van Leeuwen. I think if Van Leeuwen can find a way past Singal, although his rear end is protesting coming out of the Mansell's corner, but he's definitely in the slipstream now to make a move.
Here comes Sander Van Leeuwen. The Dutchman pulls out to the left. Cedric Bill to the outside. There's room between them both. And it's going to be the Optimal that's got the inside line. It's Van Leeuwen up to P2. Bill down to P3. It is an Optimal 1-2. Once again, much to the chagrin of Valet eSports, as Nando Massa desperately trying to demote Kanzaneri down to 6th. But Giuseppe Kanzaneri doing his level best to stay in contention at least. Keep it mathematically alive until the very, very end of the race. But for Singal here, he's just got to manage this gap now. Van Leeuwen, 13-lap-old tyres, only a 3-lap difference between them, and Singal on the harder tyres as well. So you would think Istvan Singal is the one with the advantage at the moment. It just depends, because his lap times on the hards have been good, 1 minute 18.5, but Van Leeuwen 1 minute 19.7, although he's just had to pass Cedric Bill that previous lap then. So I think Singal is looking pretty safe up front. It's all a matter of how quickly Akhayan can catch Bill and Van Leeuwen here. I think he might have a chance at Bill, but it depends if Van Leeuwen can escape up the road in these final couple of laps.
Yeah, and already pulled over a second on Bill now has Van Leeuwen, although not taken too much out of Singal. I think he's probably taken the best part of where it's come down to nearly 5 seconds now between the pair of them.
Yep. Akhayan 1 minute 17.3, amazing lap time there. So he is definitely taking risks as the German to try and close up the road between himself and Bill, as we watch Galamatis trying to hunt down Sweezy. Sweezy did sort of undercut Galamatis for that 10th position there. So Sweezy is about to finish 10th in both the Pro and World Championships 2 races in a row, unless Galamatis has something to say about it, which is certainly unusual. But you can see there, Cedric Bill can just see Akhayan 4 seconds behind and closing. Look at that first sector by David Akhayan, 27.9. That was 4/10 quicker than Cedric Bill. If he is gaining over a second a lap, then Cedric Bill should be upon him by either next lap or the one after.
Yeah, and Aghayan with the fastest lap of the race last time round. He's definitely motoring, and he's taking chunks out of the advantage. Obviously, the advantage was it approximately, that was around 15 seconds, wasn't it, between Single and Aghayan?
13, wasn't it? So he's getting about 4 seconds these last couple laps.
Yeah, so the only problem is, obviously, he's got two roadblocks in the shape of Van Leeuwen and Bill to try and get through on.
Well, Bill will definitely hold on because he's not in the same team. Van Leeuwen might be a little bit more cooperative. You never know.
I don't know.
Unless the deal was, let's let each other through early in the race because we know we'll be fighting at the end. Aghayan even has a little moment where he pushes it just a bit too far in the exit. Van den Hudding is pitting. Okay, that's a surprise. So he is making third stop of the race with a handful of laps to go for soft tyres here. So I guess because he had the gap, Marcia had overtaken him, so he's going to come out just ahead of Zabraleki. No, Lecky's, I think, is going to go just through there. So, yeah, interesting call there from Val eSports. I guess Van den Hudding, after struggling so much in the race on the hards, wants to at least have some fun on the softs before it's over.
Yeah, and I think he should be fairly quickly past Lecky's here, as he's going to go around the outside and show his late braking manoeuvre, and indeed candy from a baby there for Van den Hudding.
Yeah, a huge tyre difference there. Aghayan again closing on Bill within a second, 2 seconds now of that third position. Van Leeuwen, by the way, was only about 2/10 off of Single. So lap before he was actually slightly quicker by about 3/10. So Single started to fight back against Van Leeuwen, but yeah, he can afford to manage that gap with the time he's got left. And up the inside goes Aghayan on Cedric Bill there. So Bill, it's going to be no more heroics then. I think he's going to finish off the podium in the final race of the season. But nonetheless, Bill, with the comeback he's had at the end of this season to be running third, I think he is still going to finish third ahead of Ruben van den Hudding at the end of in the overall standings. So I think despite the race not quite going to plan, the one stop wasn't quite the strategy to be on compared to what Optiminal did. I think Bill can certainly hold his head up high.
Yeah, and Aghayan on for, what is it? This will be his best result of the season, won't it, for Aghayan?
By quite some margin. I think his previous best for David was 4th last time out in Japan, wasn't it? So he's gone one better than that at the moment.
Yeah, and I think given the pace, unless those tyres start to drop off, I'm pretty sure he's going to be on for second position at least.
This will be interesting if he clears Van Leeuwen quickly, because Single might start to sweat a little bit. You never know.
Yeah, and depending on how those hard tyres also react for Single, he's not really going to be able to go much quicker unless he's been holding something back all this time.
Yeah, no lap time classified there, so he must have had a track limits thing, potentially. Either way, Aghayan is now 1.7 seconds behind Sander Van Leeuwen and nearly 2 seconds a lap faster. So, yeah, this could be very, very tense and interesting here. The only problem is I think he's going to run out of laps to catch Single unless Single makes a mistake near the end. Or does Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger, Suzuka 91 win gifting, as you implied earlier, which I don't think Single has to do that or should feel under any obligation. Either way, I think Aghayan has had an absolutely brilliant performance tonight.
Yeah, and well, like you said, well, he did have the fastest lap last time around, but that's been taken from Van den Hudding now, who's gone even quicker with 1:16.3.
Incredible lap there from Van den Hudding, and that really shows you what potentially he could have done in this race. So maybe one less spin and a slightly different strategy. He could have been right up there in this fight for what is now P2. Nonetheless, he's going to try and put some pressure on Marsa in the closing stages, but Nando Marsa, I think on 10 lap old softs should still be unless he absolutely fall off a cliff, he should be absolutely okay. He's fighting with Kanzanuri, he's only a second ahead of him. So we've got two big fights then, that fight for 5th position and the probably more interesting fight, which is Aghayan versus Van Leeuwen. Aghayan now finally being able to take advantage of the slipstream, closing in at the first corner, but again a little bit too far back. And could the time lost here be crucial to deciding the win of this race? Then he'll get another opportunity then on the run into turn 4, then into the sort of early stadium section. Here we go, he pulls to the inside, looks like Van Leeuwen going for the outside and doesn't make it too difficult there. That was really confident on the brakes from David Aghayan, and he is up into P2. What an extraordinary performance he's put together. And now there's only one car separating himself from victory, and it's the man who is surely just starting to coast at home and think about sealing this championship.
Yeah, it's there's a few laps left, and with the lap times like Heinz been doing, there's still a possibility.
There he is.
On the last lap.
Just spotted him in the background there. 4.6 seconds the gap, but it's already going down. Although that might just be because Single met the stadium section first. I think it is, yeah. So he had to get on the brakes first, and that allowed Heinz to artificially close somewhat. So, yeah, the gap at about 4 seconds then as we start lap 59 of 61. So 2 more laps to go, and Akhayan will be pushing here because second would be brilliant, but nobody wants to let a win slip between their fingers here. It's been the bolder strategy to go for 2 stints on the end on the softs rather than the hards, but he had to do something different to put the pressure on Istvan Single, the man who was within a couple of laps of becoming the 2025 FSR Pro Champion, regardless of whether he wins or not.
Yeah, and this is going to be a brilliant performance if Akhayan does manage to pull this off. He's already taken half a second in the first sector, or over a half a second. It's now down to 3 seconds nearly.
Yeah, my mistake. This is lap 58, not 59. So there is another lap to go. Crucially for David Akhayan. Yeah. So yeah, Akhayan will be thankful of that. I think Single could do with 1 lap less, because even with the championship, I don't want to say on a platter, but it's very much up for grabs at the moment for him. I think he could do without this headache that Akhayan has given him pretty much all race in his defence.
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest, the Optimal team have given him a headache all race. It's one or the other that's been leading or trading positions with him.
Here we go then. 1 minute 18.5 for Istvan Single. David Akhayan sets a 1 minute 17.6, so nearly a second a lap faster then. But the charge ever so slightly, it's still very strong here, but I think Istvan Single in his mid-18s, he's doing just enough at the moment to hold on. But the pressure is only going to get worse from here then. Meanwhile, Sander van Leeuwen starting to disappear in the rearview mirror. Massa as well, he's starting to run out of softs, and the gap is extended to 1.5 seconds from Canzonieri. So Canzonieri looks like he should hold on to 5th, but after a bit of some bad luck in this season, nonetheless a very strong campaign from Canzonieri to keep the battle going all the way to the final race of the season, and it's going to be, unfortunately, runners-up for both Canzonieri and Valle in the Drivers and Teams Championships.
Well, interestingly for Single, his fastest lap of the race has only been a 1:18.2, so he's only lapping 3 tenths off of his fastest lap, so he's been very consistent this stint.
Yeah, certainly. So Istvan Single, of course, we saw a couple of races in recent history, like Singapore, like Kota, where he really struggled. There was him getting, I think, a drive-through. I forget what it was for. I think it was speeding in the pit lane, actually, in last time out in Suzuka as well. So what looked like a peerless campaign, that a couple of chinks in the armor had appeared, but nevertheless, he has actually done a very, very convincing drive. Took the lead at the first corner, and despite the roadblocks put in his way, that's been the word of the day, isn't it? Roadblocks. He has overcome all of them, and now he's just got to defend in this final 2 laps to become, well, not to become the FSR Pro Champion, but just to win the race, the Mexico Grand Prix.
Yeah, the gap, 1.5 seconds with 2 laps to go. This is going to be very tasty on the final lap, I think.
Yep, Akhayan now almost within a whisker of victory here. And this is the most tense view of the race, because it's Single looking back, and there is Alekis, who I think has run into trouble because Miram, Miram is potentially, Alekis has come to almost a stop, so potentially trying to avoid a track limits penalty, and nearly hits him as he attempts to rejoin there. So good reactions from Miram to keep the car predictable there, but also Alekis just avoiding disaster.
And it seems as though Single is really starting to push now. Or Akhayan's tyres are starting to go off as well, but they're still very close as they come out of Mansell's corner, although I don't think he's going to be close enough for DRS.
Yeah. This might be his final opportunity then. Final lap coming, and Single defending, but he actually goes right to the inside, and I think makes that move quite easy for Akhayan in the end. He takes the lead on the final lap of the race.
I don't think that was a defensive there. I think that was, as I pre-predicted, the old, Senneberger 91.
Yeah, so Istvan Single then, very, very gracious knowing Akine has put together a fantastic drive, decides not to put up a fight then. Gets a bit of DRS though into turn 4. But yeah, I think we are not going to see... Oh, in fact, Single has a little moment into turn 4, so we are not going to see a massive fight on the final lap there. Istvan Singal. I thought for a moment he was going very defensive, but you're absolutely right. He completely lifted off the throttle there and decided to let David Akine into first position, which he assumedly, David Akine now, who never has scored a podium in the Pro Championship, is on his course for his first ever win. So he is now going to be our 5th winner of the season then in what's been a spectacular Pro Championship. David Akine, the German, set pole position, taking the lead on the final lap now, and he's going to deservedly become the winner of the Mexico Grand Prix. He's slowing down just into the final couple of corners, and what a huge moment this is going to be for him, but even bigger for the man behind him as Optiminal win the team's championship. But Singal is the 2025 Formula SimRacing Pro Champion. Congratulations to the Hungarian. What a superb campaign he's put together. Optiminal completely lock out the podium. Akine leads home Single, and Van Leeuwen in third.
Yeah, brilliant performance there from, well, all 3 of them really, and to the Optimal team for the season. Akine, as we were saying, pretty much taking his first podium in style by making it a win. He made a strategy that we thought was a bit unorthodox work. Maybe a little help on the last lap from Single, but
True,
nonetheless,
but he had to get himself in that position, didn't he?
Yeah, take nothing away from that performance. And yeah, Single, the champion who was very dominant at the early part of the season. That's really helped him in the latter part of the season where he's struggled a little bit.
Yeah, but you think back to his pro season last year as well, where I think his best result was P7 in Australia, and he finished outside the top 10 in the championship after a brilliant academy season in 2023. He really needs to strike back, and he's done so in start. If that's the last we see of Istvan Singal in FSR for a while, then he absolutely ends on a very, very deserved high. I think it's difficult not to be a fan of Istvan Singal. Oh, so that's the most contact we've seen between the Optiminals all day. They've kept it so clean, and right at the end, the donuts concenter into one another, I guess is the only term I can think of.
Was that the equivalent of a car high five?
I think it was the back end of one car hitting the back end of another car, so I'll let your imagination fill in the rest. But nonetheless, that does not dampen the celebrations whatsoever. And yeah, Istvan Singal was very nearly took his 5th win of the season there, decided in the end to take he's finished on the podium in all but 2 races. That's his 8th podium of the season, so I think that's more than anybody else in the championship. Canzoneri, I think, was the next closest with 7. But there we go, 61 laps in the bag, and there we go. Are we going to see the Optiminals go to the podium? Yes, we are. Singal, well, he didn't win the race, but he knows very much who is number 1, and I think if it was let's say Giuseppe Canzonieri instead of Istvan Singal, he might have fought that slightly harder, just in theory. But nonetheless, Canzonieri has to be content with 5th and that runners-up spot, and our new champion takes his pride of place, deservedly so. So let's go through the results for the final time this season. It is David Akine taking a brilliant breakthrough victory, and the German who is one of the drivers who joined from Gridfinder, our main sponsor, early in the season. And he is really, really impressed, and I can't wait to see what more David Akine can do in the Pro Championship in 2026 next year. Istvan Singal, runner-up, is more than enough for him to be crowned our new Pro Champion, with Van Leeuwen completing the Optimal podium lockout. Van Leeuwen definitely had an interesting strategy there, and was in fact holding up both Singal and Akine at one point early in the race after a bit of a track limits fiasco. Cedric Bill, the one stop didn't quite work for him. He ends up in P4, but does beat home Giuseppe Canzonieri, our runner-up in the championship. Nando Marsa splits the valets in P6 with Van and Hudding. Ultimate defensive drive, but it was only enough for P7 on his strategy. Perseus Miram takes P8 after just avoiding Zabraleckis in the final stages, and Amin Suizi rounds out the top 10. A good end to the season for the cell spot driver. Thus, Ganlamaris is P11. David O'Reilly ends the season with points in 12th, and Mihaila Vincentijevic is the final car home. So that is absolutely great news for the Serbian, taking a couple points in 13th. Not getting to the end, sadly, was Jury Kotochville. Terry Crawford, with that massive accident, tried to repair it, but it wasn't worth continuing. Felipe Salvino, Mattia Feligni, and Andrei Borotovsky, all failing to meet the checkered flag. So let's hope they will come back next season for another go, be it in Pro or indeed Academy, which hopefully will have a big enough field to fill on this occasion. But there are your final standings in the Pro Championship. Istvan got 208 points, comfortably ahead of Scansieri. Bill is third. Ruben van den Hudding deservedly finishes in P4 ahead of David Aghayan, but all of our top 5 taking wins this season. Nando Marsa is 6th, best of the rest, with Amin Sweezy, that P10 at the end, getting him up to 7th. Persis Miriam is 8th. Van Leeuwen ends the season sneaking into the top 10 in 9th, and Kostas Galamatis rounds out 10th position on 50 points. So, Ryan, your final thoughts on the season before we end the broadcast?
Wow, it's been exciting all the way through, and Single managing to take it at the end is very deserved, especially with the consistency he's shown at the start of the season. Like, look at that, the pretty much not even finishing off the podium for those first 6 rounds. But yeah, we've seen Van den Hudding doing very well as well. I feel as though if he hadn't have missed out on the first race and had a couple of those DNFs, he would have been up there. But it'll be interesting to see with some new drivers managing to come along and show their grit in this season, how they fare come the full season next season.
I did say final words, but actually we do just have enough time for a couple of interviews. I think we've got Sander van Leeuwen, David Aghayan, Ruben Machete from Optimal, and we got Giuseppe Canzonieri, our runner-up in the championship from Valle. So shall we drag the whole Optimal team, aside from Sinkel, who seems to be partying, understandably. So let's get Ruben Machete, Sander van Leeuwen, and David Aghayan in. So we're now joined by Ruben Machete, team principal of Optimal eSports, who dramatically have overhauled that 3-point gap to Valle and taken the Pro Teams Championship. And 2 of their drivers, Sander van Leeuwen, who got his first podium of the season, and David Aghayan, who not only took his first podium, but his first win with a spectacular performance from pole position and a very interesting strategy too. So let's start with you, Ruben. Obviously, we knew it was going to be tense coming into this final race of the season, but Optimal threw absolutely everything at it and locked out the podium. You must be delighted with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was probably the best way, one of the best ways we have done this season. Not just that we dominated, but also by the fact that more than just Easton was so fast today. I mean, David, who got his first win today, when I think his best result before that was P4. Same goes for Sander with his first podium. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. And before the race, you never know how it's going, and this was the perfect way today to end it with 3 cars on the podium.
Absolutely. Is there anybody else you want to shout out to before we move on to your drivers, Ruben? Obviously, best of luck for World Championship in half an hour's time or so.
Well, thanks to everyone who has driven for Optimal. I think George Winter was also a huge part on why we were in the lead so early. Also, the new drivers who joined, Alex, how you pronounce them, thanks also to him, Alekis. Yeah, thanks to him as well. You will be definitely there for next season as well. And yeah, was a really good season and had so much fun.
Yeah, and I have to say, on a personal note, Ruben, I'm very, very happy for you because you're a good friend, and it's always great to see you behind the scenes putting things together and providing an absolutely fantastic set of drivers for us to commentate on. And moving on then to those drivers, let's not keep them anyway. Let's talk to the race winner, David Aghayan. David, I bet you didn't have this, you didn't think this was going to happen when you joined in Malaysia all those months ago.
No, to be honest, this morning it wasn't even clear if I was going to race due to work-related emergency. And I volunteered to step in, so crazy to think that I'm here. But obviously not without the team, without Ruben who took me in, without everyone in the team, also from the world split, who share their knowledge whenever it's necessary.
It was a bold call to go for the free stop. What made you do it? Did you see Istvan putting on the hards and you thought, oh, may as well do 2 stints on the softs instead?
it looked promising, and I love my Excel sheet. And I'm very glad that Ruben convinced me not to go for the hards. Yeah.
Again, Ruben
so,
Machete proving his worth in the strategy department.
This wouldn't have happened without the team today. So, except for putting the thing on pole, but even that wouldn't have been possible without all the exchange of knowledge. So.
It means Optimnal have scored all the pole positions this season. You, Jorg Winter, and Istvan, most notably, who's taken, I think, 7 or 8, are the only people who have done it. So a rare achievement. And it was very, very nice of Istvan to let a little bit off the throttle just on that final lap for you, I guess. But nonetheless, you really had to fight to get into that position, past Bill and past the other man in this call, Sander van Leeuwen.
Yeah, hi.
Hello, Sander. Let's move on to you because my dinner's going cold downstairs. But congratulations again, David, and I look forward to seeing what you can do next season as well. So, Sander van Leeuwen, your first podium, a really strong performance. There was an interesting moment where you went off track and had a little bit of a track limits warning and had to slow right down with your 2 teammates right behind you. That must have been a bit tense.
Yeah, so what happened was as I started turning into the right corner, my screen froze for like 1.5 seconds. And so I just kept my wheels straight, hoping I didn't crash into a wall, and then it just put me off track, completely cutting the corner. Slowed down a lot, but it wasn't enough. Got the drive through, and then I just, I just drove on the sauce as hard as I could. Pace was really good. The tire wear was really good compared to the rest, so I could push a lot longer as well on the medium on my first stint, and then as well. On the last stint of my mediums, ended up like 4 seconds behind P1, and congrats to P1 and P2, of course. But yeah, if I didn't have the drive-through, I don't know what could have been.
Obviously frustrating, but I think it is definitely a race, a season of what could have been in some ways. Obviously, you were only able to do 4 races in the end. Are we going to see you back next season, Sander?
Yeah, I think I'm like making my schedule a bit, and after this race I might just join FSR this next season as well, because I think I have the potential to win the championship maybe, especially with my tire wear and with my pace. So it's a maybe, but I think the chances are high you will see me next year.
Well, we've enjoyed seeing you in 2025, and thank you for putting in some spectacular overtakes and some amazing performances. So all the best for have a good Christmas, Sander, and well done on the podium.
Yeah, thanks, you too.
And we might be able to get a message in Hungarian from Istvan Sinkel, but let's talk to the man in the waiting room who has had, obviously, not the end of the season he would have wanted, but nonetheless, a great campaign to keep the title battle going all the way to the final race. It is Giuseppe Canzonieri. So, because Giuseppe Canzonieri from Valley eSports joins us now. Giuseppe, obviously, not quite the end of the season you wanted. A good performance to hold on to 5th place in the end after a tough qualifying. Obviously, losing the championship. We know Suzuka was a very, very tough race for you as well, where there's a bit of unfortunate incident with one of the Go teams that cost you a lot of positions in the end. But nonetheless, the title battle still went all the way to the end. You and Ruben have been a fantastic team. Obviously, frustration to miss out on the team's championship, but nonetheless, you entertained us throughout the season with so many really consistent performances. And so how do you feel at the end of the season?
Yeah, thank you. Really not a great race today. And after Suzuka, my chances were really low. I pretty much needed a miracle. So we were at least hoping to do something for the team's championship, but didn't work out. But yeah, overall it was a good season. I'm happy. It was great racing with Ruben in the team. It was a great teammate, and in fact, I think he could have done a lot better if he didn't miss the first race. And of course, big congrats to Istvan. He did an amazing season, and congrats to David for today's win.
Absolutely. I think I agree with that sentiment entirely. So Giuseppe, will you see you back for another go in 2026?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Awesome. And thanks again, by the way, for all your help behind the scenes on the forum and helping manage some of the community aspects, because it's kind of all hands on deck, and you've definitely pitched in when you didn't have to necessarily. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thanks to you and everyone else in the organization.
Brilliant. So I've been trying to fill time so Istvan can send a message to me in Hungarian, but I think we might just end the broadcast. My dinner is getting very, very cold now. So I want to say thanks to everybody in the Pro Championship. My thanks to you, Ryan Ferris, for joining me. Thanks to everybody at home watching, and to Patrik, Hanko, and everybody else who's helped broadcast Pro over the course of the season. But don't go anywhere, because I will be back in about half an hour's time to cover the World Championship finale. Mark Schiller, of course, is already the champion, but the Teams Championship is still in play there. Optimal are going for 2 in a row, but they've got to go some to beat Go Team, who go in with, I think, a 33-point lead, if I'm not mistaken. River might correct me afterwards, but yeah, nonetheless, it's going to be exciting also to see who's going to be the runner-up in the championship between Sander Callas and Patrik Hanko, who's, of course, our broadcast director. But anyway, thank you very much for watching the Pro Championship in 2025. We'll be back in 2026, but also a special announcement, the Winter Series. We'll let you know all about it at the end of World Championship. So myself, Owen Harmon, and David O'Reilly, along with Amir Oates on broadcast direction, will be there to take you through that. But thank you very much for watching Pro in 2025. Congrats to David Akine for winning tonight, and to Istvan Singal, our new champion, with his victorious Optimal team. Goodbye.